Hi there. So today we're going to be talking about function notation and evaluating functions, which just means solving the functions. So let's talk about what function notation is first of all. Function notation always starts out with the letter, with a letter. This is the name of the function. So we like to name things, name our functions in math using letters. So it could be function f, function k, function g, function h. It could be any letter. And then we put a set of parentheses next to the name, and we put our input inside the parentheses. We say this in math as f of x. So you say the name of the function, f, then you say the word of, and then you say the input. In this case, it's x. The input is not always x. Sometimes they'll use a different letter for the input, just like they might use a different letter for the name of the function. And this over here is going to be your output, okay? The left side of the function right here, this f of x, it does not mean f times x like we usually mean in math when we squish two things together and put parentheses in between. This is just letting you know that this is a function that you're solving. So this is f of x. We don't need to multiply the f by the x. So if we look down at the bottom half of the page, okay, remember this is the name of the function, this is the input, and this is our output, 2x squared minus 3x plus 6. Now we like to put numbers in for our input and then solve them. So if we put f of 2, that means that everywhere you see an x, you're going to replace it with a 2. So instead of f of x, you're going to write f of 2. And then instead of 2x squared, you're going to write 2 times 2 squared. Instead of 3x, you're going to write 3 times 2, and then you'll have your 6 out to the side. So your input replaces all of the variables over on the output side of the equation. And remember, when we're solving these equations, we have to use PEMDAS. So we have to solve parentheses first, and then we solve our exponents, and then multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. So we do have some parentheses here, but there's nothing inside the parentheses that we need to solve. It's just 2 to let us know that we're multiplying. So we can skip parentheses, go to exponents. 2 squared means 2 times 2. So 2 times 2 is 4. You can see that written right here. So we have 2 times 4 minus 3 times 2 plus 6. After exponents, we do our multiplication. So 2 times 4 is 8. Negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. And then we have our positive 6 out to the side. Once we have evaluated or solved our function, we can write it in this form right here. So you write the name of the function, the input in parentheses, and then equals 8. What this tells us is that if we put a 2 in function f, the answer that we'll get out is 8. So let's do some examples on page 15. Okay, let's look at this first example up at the top. So this tells us find f of negative 2. That means my function name is f, my input is negative 2, and everywhere that I see a variable, I'm going to put in the negative 2. So f of x changes into f of negative 2. 2x squared, instead of an x, we're going to put negative 2. 3x, instead of x, we put negative 2. And then we can solve. Remember, we do our exponents first. Negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. And then we do our multiplication. 2 times 4 is 8. Negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6. Negative times a negative is a positive. And then we can add 6. When we write our answer, we need to include the name of the function, the input, and the output. So f of negative 2 equals 20. If we put negative 2 into function f, the answer we will get out is 20. Okay, let's do one more example here. So find h of 5. That means that we put a 5 everywhere we see an x. Okay, now we need to start with our parentheses first to solve this. So inside of the parentheses, we have 2 times 5, which is 10, minus 3 is 7. So our parentheses turns into the number 7. We have 10 minus 3. We don't have any exponents, but we do have some multiplication. So 3 times 7 is 21. We don't have any division. We do have addition. So 21 plus 5 equals 26. So you're going to write h of 5 equals 26. And again, when it says find g of -1, everywhere you see an x, you're going to put a -1. On your assignment on page 16 and 17, the functions all have different names. So for instance, the function on number 1 is named k, the function on number 2 is named g, the function on 3 is named f, and the function on 4 is named p. The inputs are also different. So you can see by this first letter in the parentheses, the input on number 1 is x, but the input on number 2 is n. So when on number 2, when it says find g of 4, the 4 is our input. So everywhere we see an n, we're going to put a 4. Now I recommend writing out the whole equation so that you can make sure that you've written it out right before you solve it. So instead of g of n, we're going to put g of 4 equals -3 times 4 instead of n plus 4. Then don't forget to solve it after you've written that out. So g of 4 equals -3 times 4 is -12 plus 4, and g of 4 equals 8. So don't get confused just because the input is not x and the function is not f. It doesn't matter what they're named.